What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar with C-Zar Gets Crypto, and we are talking about Bitcoin Cash. Shout out to the Dragon Riders and the House of the Dragon. Right now we're looking at it on the BCH USD Coinbase chart. I'm on the daily here. We can look at the weekly real quick, actually. Starting off looking at the RSI, you can see we're in a nice bullish posturing with the RSI. I don't think that this RSI is going to go lower than the 50, though we could stand to come a little bit lower right now. Find support in an area that we found resistance on before here, even a little bit before here, somewhere around the 55 area where we found resistance, right? Resistance there even. The daily RSI does look a little bit toppish, right? We had this kind of scenario that I was talking about where if we came down, this wouldn't look so good, and that would spell for more immediate downside. But I don't think that we're going to see something lower than this low here. I very much think that that is the low right now. Let's see. Oops. Let's see here. You know, we could go a little bit lower based on this trend line, you know, something like that maybe. I didn't mean to delete it. We are kind of holding it right now, though, aren't we? I don't know. A bounce from here might be precedented, or not. It might be, what's the word I'm looking for? It might be called for. I don't know. But I do think that we would go, you know, from this low to this high here. I would think that we would go to this 382 to find support, somewhere around 216. Likely a little bit below it. You know, as far as the wick goes, I would think a little bit below it would be called for as well. But if we look at this overall fib from the top, nope, that's not the top. That is not the top. That's a little bit above the top. Top to bottom, you can see that this 382 as well is at about 214. So the first one was at 216, this one's at 214. Coming back down to this area would make sense for a bounce. And I'll tell you, you know, there's a few reasons for that. You know, looking at it from this perspective, coming up to your 618 like this and then coming back down to bounce off your 382, that's a very classic kind of maneuver, and then you break above your 618. You haven't really been showing too much respect on your fibs, to be completely fair, so I would expect that you do go even a little bit below it, but at least to it, at least to 214. So I'd say somewhere between 210, 220 is probably where we're going. I would think that we go near 215, you know, we don't stop out around 220, but again, we've been disrespecting this kind of fib range, so maybe we do bottom out at these like previous daily closing highs, which is right around 220. So I would say 210 to 220. We're sitting at 231 and 63 cents right now, something like that. A move down to around this 382 level, and then we'll proceed higher. Hopefully we will break through the 618, because if, you know, on the first pass we don't break it, that's no big deal. On the second pass we break through it, great. That means statistically speaking we are very likely to see these extensions at anywhere from about 400 to 500 before this like upward move is done. And when I say that, I don't mean that in one fell swoop it's going to move up there. No. You know, that's just like in this one fell swoop here, it's not breaking through the 618, though, you know, overall this move might seem like it's just continued to do that, but it like we'll probably work our way up, right, and stair step on these fibs as we do it. So that's one reason why I would expect us to go to the 382, because, you know, coming up here, finding resistance here, generally you would find support at your 382. Sometimes you come back down to your 236, and that could work out too. You could, prices below $200 are completely possible, but this 382 is more respected more times from my experience. So that's one reason. But then also here, you know, from this low to this high, if you're looking at this as like an overall kind of like bullish move, you know, a more bullish move that's like just in the beginning and things are getting cooking, which I think it is, because we just broke out of this downtrend here, right? We're forming higher highs that we haven't formed in quite some time. Volume is starting to come back in. We are getting some of the stronger readings that we've seen in the RSI throughout this whole range, since the range formed, really. Just a lot of things lining up with that this is the beginning of an upward move. You know, it's become very clear as of like this day here, in my opinion, but very commonly with strong moves upwards, or you know, just like with decent moves up, you know, you would at least come back to your 382 and then bounce from there. And again, going a little bit below your 382 is fine. You could come all the way down to your 618, 69 area. That is also, you know, kind of common as well. But sometimes when things are just moving and they're just moving and grooving and not really it seems like they're not stopping, but really, you know, they are moving, they're zigzagging up. This 382 area is a very common area to find support. So again, I would think, just because of all the disrespect we've seen on it, I would think that we go a little bit below it. There's that other 382 right below it, but somewhere, reiterating the point that I think between about 215 or 220 to 210 is likely where we're going. I would say closer to that 215 level, closer to right in the middle of that range, than either of the what's the word I'm looking for? The parameters of it, the outlying, the where I'm boxing it in. Instead of 220 or 210, I would think it goes closer to 215. If I had to be precise with it, I would say close to 215. But here we are sitting at 231 now. That's about $15 away. I've got some buy orders set for Bitcoin Cash. They haven't gotten, let me see. They have not gotten hit yet. My lowest buy, or my highest buy order is at 220 right now, but I might have to change that, man. I might move it down to 218, do like 218, 215, and 213, something like that. But I do think we go lower. Daily does look like it wants to go down. This RSI to me does look kind of topish. It looks like we're about to break out of this range. If we do, that would definitely confirm the idea that we're going to come down probably around this purple line, which wouldn't you know it's right around that 210 to 220 level. As the days go on, you know, if it doesn't make a straight move today, as the days go on, this line will increase and maybe come up to that 215 area that I'm talking about, something like that. You know, we did find support here, found support here, fake out support there, but then support there as well. You know, I think that this line is going to hold as support. And then we're just going to continue to grow from there. But looking at the 4-hour time frame, you can see that this RSI is a little weaker. We are, you know, finding resistance at the 50 area. We found support on before, an area we found resistance on before. Coming down here, we didn't quite hit the oversold zone, so I would expect that we at least do that before we've officially bottomed out. With this look, I would expect that we do get into the oversold zone, so look for that. That oversold move might be key in determining where our low is at. Just because we get in the oversold zone does not mean that it's done, though. You know, there's other things to pay attention to as well, so don't take that like as the end-all be-all. But let's see. That would be, to me, a sign, though, that we might be getting done, is getting into that oversold zone. Looking back out on the weekly, yeah, man. I think we're doing just like classic stuff right now, man. Look at that. We found a little bit of resistance at the 236. Cool. Come back down to this 382 maybe at 200. You know, there still is the possibility we could go below 200, because I've said it a few times in this video and in multiple videos, but going below your 382 is totally fine. Wicking below it is totally fine. It's very common to wick below it and then come up and close at support for it. Just like we wicked above the 236 here, but we closed and opened right at it for resistance, you know. So I do think that we are getting ready to move up, you guys. I think that the move is going to take us somewhere based on these extensions here from this top to this low. It probably will take us somewhere around $400 to $500. And I would think that that happens by the end of the year. Genuinely speaking, you know, we're in the beginning of October right now. We have about 3 months left. I would think that a quarter of a year is more than enough time for these extensions to come into play. It could take longer than that, of course. You know, nothing's predictable 100% in crypto, but that's kind of the, you know, the overall game plan idea with this thing. I want to just see real quick. I mean, you got your 2414 lining up with that 1272 there. Yeah, maybe we do go above $500. Maybe we don't, you know, it's whatever, but these fibs aren't really, I don't know, maybe they're not relevant. They might be. We'll pay attention to it as we go on, but let's see, from top to bottom here, I mean, let's see. You literally bounced right off your 236. Like, this is classic fib behavior. With this, I would expect that we do make a move up to the 618, which is above $500. So, will that happen by the end of this year? I think there's a solid chance that it could. Could we see prices higher than that? Sure. But again, you know, kind of like if you keep this in mind, right, up to the 618, finding resistance in this area, coming back down and maybe finding support. Look at that on a previous area of resistance, let alone the 382 itself. You know, kind of lines up with the same thing that we're doing now, just on a smaller scale. From top to bottom, you found resistance at your 618, 69 area, the first pass, and you're coming down, hopefully, to find support on your 382, promoting another higher low, and then from there we can talk about higher highs. It would be very not nice to see this thing bounce off of here and then reject this area. Even if it's a higher high, rejecting this area on the second attempt wouldn't be encouraging, in my opinion. You know, it's not totally detrimental. There have been times where on a second pass you do, you know, you bounce off your 0.5, you go higher, and then like you just work your way up and you do inevitably see those extensions. But the statistical likelihood of seeing these extensions come into play before, you know, going lower at least, it goes down if on the second pass we reject the 618, 69 area. That wouldn't look good, you know. So if we see a day where it wicks up here and then it closes below, and then the next day it like opens red and then it like comes up, I wouldn't consider that a rejection on the second pass. We'd want to see a move kind of overall looking like this, right, where it's a clear rejection off of this level. So Some stuff, you know, to work through before we're like more or less guaranteed. We're never guaranteed, but more or less with a higher likelihood to go up to these levels. But I think it looks good, guys. I really do think, you know, we've got all the right things. All the right things are going for us right now. I just think right now we're on our way down just a little bit, whatever, and then from there Bitcoin Cash is going to go up. And then, you know, $300, $500, probably above that $500 range is what I'm thinking. We'll be above this purple line for the first time in a while, man. The only time that we've broken above it in its history, promoted some very good price action as well. But we did have, to remind you, you know, from this point, you know, from the low point to the high point where we, you know, broke through this purple line here, that was a 221% move. But right after that, we had an immediate drop over 3 weeks of like 43% to the downside. So look for volatility in Bitcoin Cash. If you feel like you've missed the boat, that's okay. Respect that. Respect that. If you feel like you've missed the boat, go into a different project, maybe hold your cash on the side, wait for it to come back, wait for it to have a pullback. You know, you might not be able to buy at low prices like this, but if you wait and you're patient, you can still buy just a little bit higher. Like if you were waiting to buy Bitcoin Cash all this time and these weeks didn't convince you, but then this one here was the dagger, and you're like, no, I'm going to be stubborn, I'm still not going to buy. Well, it came back and it gave you an opportunity just a little bit above where you're being stubborn. So opportunities will be abundant in Bitcoin Cash. It's anything but a straight line. It likes to be volatile. So we had our straight line here. That's kind of out of character for it, you know, like this move here, right? It didn't give a lot back. It gave like 30% back there or something like that. But these kind of wig-wagging moves, Bitcoin Cash is very volatile. So I would kind of count on that going forward. I do think, you know, once we reach this area at about $500, something like that, at this 1618 here, we would see a pullback down to about 400, maybe even lower, all the way back down to 300, like genuinely. And then from there, we can talk about prices that are much, much higher. Because hopefully by that time, you know, by the time that we top out and then have that pullback, that'll be sometime next year that we've had that pullback. And then we can set our eyes on like prices that are well above $1,000, thousands of dollars, maybe even above $10,000. You guys know where I think this thing is going. By the end of this cycle, I would, from bottom or top to bottom, I would assume that we're going to, at a minimum, achieve a price of about 13,000 and potentially even up to 23,000. I don't think we're going to hit 53,000 this cycle. That'd be nice. Anything's possible in crypto, but I don't think that's going to happen. From top to bottom here, you know, you've got your 1618 just below this 1272 here on this like smaller fib extension. So I very much would expect that this $13,000 area is going to come into play, if not potentially even like $23,000. That's what I'm looking at. Somewhere between 13 and 23,000, a nice $10,000 range. Definitely not small, but it's a big move up from here, man. That gives it, even at these prices at $231, that gives it 100x potential with those projections. So that's all I got for you guys with Bitcoin Cash. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up. I appreciate all the likes. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. If you don't subscribe and you want to see more, you're just going to have to keep typing in my name, man. It's a very long name, but that's the way you're going to have to do it if you don't want to subscribe. So just subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.